Hey, good morning, everybody. And here we are at the bottom of 47B. Okay. Um, let's see. So we're discussing, just jog my memory here for a second. Okay, yes, we were discussing the dispute between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan as to whether whether Mashicha as an acquisition methodology, an acquisition tool, is Doraisa or Drabanan. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it's Doraisa. According to no, sorry, according to Reish Lakish, it's Doraisa. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, it was a takana instituted by the rabbis. Okay. So I think we're up to Tanan, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the last word on the line, 4 lines up. None. We have a Mishnah. But the rabbis said about like we've discussed, like when you can go back on the deal if the deal has not been consummated yet, if the Kenyan acquisition hasn't taken place yet, then you can back out of the deal even if you have a verbal agreement. But the rabbi said that God who punished the generation of the flood, he'll also punish someone who doesn't keep his word, right? Who backs out of a verbal deal. Now, so that only makes sense to say that you can do it, but it's not right. That only makes sense if you can really do it. So if the money is affects the acquisition, then great. But if you say that you really need the Mashicha, like Reish Lakish who says it's the Mashicha that biblically makes the Kenyan. So then don't say you shouldn't do it. Say you can't do it. It doesn't work. Right? So Gemara says Mishum Devarim. So Gemara says the Gemara answer is, yeah, you can't do it, and also you get dinged because you didn't keep your word. So that is that how you express something like that when you say, but it works, but you get punished. It's not a but, it's an also. Vahatanya, as we have a Bryce Rabbi Shimon Omer, Alpha Pishamru Talis Kona Dinar Zav, even though the rabbi said that that like when you take you're buying a coat, right? So when you take the coat in your hand and you're kona it, then the seller acquires the money that you paid. The Indian Azov kona talis, but not the other way around. That when the seller takes the money, that doesn't affect the transaction yet. You're still lacking the buyer taking possession of the coat. This is the halacha. So that is halacha. Aval amru misha par miyashadar mabul miyashadar aflaga. However, they said that God who extracted punishment from the flood, the people of the flood, the people of the Tower of Bavel, the people of Sodom and Amorah, the people of Egypt at the Red Sea, who will punish someone who doesn't keep his word. The Hanosim Bidvarim, and somebody who conducts business verbally only, like without the necessary legal requirements of Kenyan. Lokana, it doesn't work. And if you back out of it, though, like you're conducting business only verbally, and then you back out of it, God, the rabbis aren't so happy with you, even though it doesn't work. The Amar Rava said, and Rava says, and that's the extent of it. It's like you can't. The only thing we can say about it is that the rabbis aren't happy, but you're not, but you don't get this kind of curse that you're going to get, this God will exact punishment from you.
Well, there's a problem here.
Yeah.
Every one of these examples is non-Jews.
Ooh. Uh-huh. Ooh, interesting. Maybe, we don't, it's kind of a superstitious thing to refer to punishment of Israel, right?
Yeah,
Often you have
because
like Lashon Sagi Nahar.
we already know the halakha that what it takes to create a king and is different for Jews and non-Jews.
Yeah, interesting. No, I think perhaps what's going on is, often the Gemara doesn't want to use the expression like God who punished Israel, right? So you sometimes it just uses Soneim Shel Yisrael, right? Instead of saying Israel, it says Israel's enemies, right? A curse on, if you want to say a curse on Israel, you say a curse on Israel's enemies, but everybody knows what you really mean. So maybe that's what's going on here.
Interesting.
I'm just speculating, but yeah, that would be one way of viewing. Anyway, so Gemara says Dvarim v'ika badayu moschai ba'aval. So Gemara says yes, when you have a verbal agreement and the transfer of money. So even though it didn't, even though you didn't have the Mashiach, the actual kinyan, that's subject to the aval, the phrasing but. Drawing the if it's just verbal and there's no money transaction, then we wouldn't say use the language of aval. So you can't. So the Gemara is not bothered by Rava who says who takes out the aval, because that's a different case. That's somebody who's only doing business verbally. Okay, it's a bit of an aside. Amar Rava. We're continuing to look for support for Reish Lakish or Rabbanan, or Rav Yochanan, is the biblical kinyan through the transfer of the money or through the kinyan Mashiach. Amar Rava, Kra umasnisa masayle Reish Lakish. We're going to support Reish Lakish from a verse and from a Mishnah. Reish Lakish who says that, and I keep getting them mixed up. Go back to the day before. And Reish Lakish says that it's Mashiach is the biblical kinyan. So let's see what we've got. What's the verse? Pasuk says that someone who cheats their fellow with a pikadon, with something that was entrusted to them, or a deposit, or robbing or cheating, right? So what are all these things? Tzumas yad, putting in the hand, which is translated here as a loan. This is we're talking about where there's a surety given, like a what do you call it? A mashkon. What's the word I'm looking for? Security. If I lend you money and I take, you give me your whatever your coat as a guarantee, I hold on to it. So if I am negligent or I misappropriate that, then I'm responsible. Ashak. What is the word ashak? This is Amar Chisda. If you have this is referring to Oshek as cheating someone on wages, and so like I think we're trying to understand how all this relates to someone who is posheya, who misappropriates an item like a pikadon, or what we've always discussed as some he's kind of being a shomer on it. This is. And how does that relate to someone who's cheating someone else on salaries? So if I don't pay you, but I give you some kind of a guarantee that I'm going to pay you, so I give you my coat to hold until I pay you. If that is collateral. That's the word I'm looking for. So if I misappropriate that collateral, then that's what the verse is talking about. So v'chiahadrei kra ksiv, but when the Torah says that you have to return it, that you have to return the thing that you stole or the wages that you withheld, or the object that was left with you. Right? But what's missing? We had 4 cases of the crime and only 3 cases of how to do restitution. Where's the tsumas yad? My tama, why? Lav mishum de michsura mashicha. Maybe because there's no when it comes to the case of a loan, there's no transferring of the object from one person to the other. So the like, why is it different with a loan? I lend you money, and you give me collateral, or you designate collateral, but you don't hand it over to me. Whereas with the other cases, I owe you wages, so I give you some piece of collateral, and you took it, right? So yeah, I'm not sure I understand here what the difference is. Second. I guess that the loan never becomes the property. The loan collateral never becomes the property of the person who's holding the collateral, and so Mashicha wouldn't apply if it doesn't belong to if it wouldn't, it's not being given over to his ownership. So what the Gemara is implying is that deducing is that since there's a lack of Mashicha here, that's why it's not included in the way that you can do restitution, right? Rav Papa answers.
It's just a pledge. I mean, it's just a pledge. Rashi says, "Lav mishum the mechusa mashicha oto kli v'lo kanu malva." He didn't even obtain the pledge. It was a pledge that he gave, but he never transferred that object.
Right. And so what we're saying is that's why the Torah doesn't mention that case when it's discussing restitution, because there's nothing to restore, there's nothing to pay back. It never left the property of the first person in the first place. Where it says maybe the reason the Torah didn't include it is that you can deduce it from one of the other cases. You can deduce it from the case of the denied wages. Where it says we're talking about where the worker took the collateral and then gave it back to him. Okay, so there was Mashiach. Well, that's the case. Like, what is the circumstances of the withheld wages have to do with it? Now it's a deposit, right? It's a you owe me money, so it doesn't matter anymore that the source of the owing money was withheld wages. Now it's all on this pikadon. If you're saying it's a case where he handed over a pikadon, right? The collateral. So we're just trey gavne pikadon. Yeah, okay. So the Gemara wanted to talk about 2 kinds of deposit: regular regular collateral, and collateral for loss for missing wages. Right? Well, if that's the case, So also, repeat Tzumas Yad, right? If you want to already say that the case we're talking about is where they turned the obligation into a pikadon, you could say the same thing about the loan, right? Whereas says so if the Torah had repeated the case of the loan in the restitution clause, then there wouldn't be either a proof either way for what the Kinyan is. Hasha the law hadre kra Messiah. But since the Torah does not repeat the case of the loan, so we're going to assume that the loan, we're going to deduce that the case of the loan is different because there's no Mashiach, and that would be a proof for Reish Lakish that you need Mashiach to do a Kinyan. The Gemara says, "Tzumas Yad lo hadrei kra." Wait a minute. Your whole premise is the Torah doesn't mention in the restitution part. Doesn't mention Tzumas Yad. Doesn't mention loan. Tanya, we have a brayso somewhere with Shimon. You can apply. Rav Shimon says you can apply the inclusion of loans in the part where it describes the theft to the part where it describes the restitution. How do I know? Because it sums up and says, or anything that you swear falsely on. So that kind of makes it a klal. That brings in everything from above. So don't tell me that the Torah is not including this one case of the loan and excluding it from the restitution. The restitution comes back, the restitution clause comes back and says, and including everything, right? Rav Nachman said, and Rav Nachman said explicitly, why does the Torah sum things up this way in the end? Specifically to include the loan again, right? Because it's kind of blatant that it's missing. So this is how it's included. Okay, but the Torah doesn't explicitly repeat it. So it becomes a rather weak support for Reish Lakish. But okay, so that was the pasuk that we said would support Reish Lakish. What's the Mishnah that you mentioned that there's a proof? To Tanya, here it is. Nasan levalon mal. You take a coin that is hekdesh, right? So you're not supposed to use it, and you give it to as your fee to get into the bathhouse. So that's meila, that's misusing temple property. Rav said, Dafka balon hudula michsra mashicha. That's why we use the case of the bathhouse, paying for the bathhouse, because you're actually handing it over, right? And he takes it, so there's mashicha there. So that's why there's meila, because somebody else took possession of this hekdesh coin that you have. But if you buy something else where there's no mashicha, like maybe you just put the money on the table or something, 1 second. No, it's the other way around. With the bathhouse, there's nothing to take. Like you're paying a service fee, right? So there's no mashicha. You can't do mashicha on the service. You just walk into the bathhouse. It's not mashicha. But if you're buying, if you go to the store and you buy an apple, right, then you take the apple. So there is mashicha. So then handing over the money is not megillah yet. It's only once you take the apple. All right. So what we're saying is that the way we're understanding the Mishnah is that as soon as you hand over the money to the bathhouse attendant, that's megillah, right? Whereas if you go to the fruit store and you buy an apple and you hand over the money, that's not meila yet until you finalize the transaction by picking up the apple. Okay, so that implies that Mashicha is Doraisa, like Reish Lakish. But Tanya Gemara says, wait a minute, Nisana l'sapar mal, but the Brisa also says that if you give this coin to a barber, as soon as you give him the coin, that's meila. V'sapar habai lim nimshach tisparas. But you handed over the money. He hasn't cut your hair yet, right? So how come the Me'ila takes place right away? So where's the Skinon, Besapar Nachri, talking about a non-Jewish barber, Delav Bar Mashicha, who, as Charlie mentioned, the rules are different for a non-Jew. So if it's a non-Jewish barber, then it's like the bathhouse attendant, right? There's no Mashicha going to happen, no effective Mashicha going to happen, and so as soon as you hand over the money, that's when you are Moel. That's when you are misusing, are liable for Meila, for misusing the temple property. I know, I'll do it according to our.
But there's Mila in both cases, right? So if he takes the
Yes.
apple, there's
Yes.
Mila, and if he
Right.
pays the
Right.
the barber, the bath, there's still Mila.
Right. But what
In those
we're
cases, without Mashiach.
right, but we're deriving a support for Reish Lakish that if Mashiach is going to take place, then you haven't violated Meila until it takes place, until there is Mashiach. And that supports Reish Lakish's idea that Meila is Doraisa, that Mashiach is Doraisa. We have a supporting rice. On the son Sapa no Cholbali Manos, if you give this hekdesh money to a barber or a ferryman or any artisan for as payment for a service, lo mo'ad demashach. There's no me'ila until he picks something up, like the tool that you're going to use. Kashana dade. Isn't that a contradiction? Must be. What's the difference between the cases? If it's a Jewish barber, then we need Mashiach. If it's a non-Jewish barber, there's no effective Mashiach. It cannot take place, and so we don't require Shemamina. So that is a good proof for Reish Lakish. Now we're going to switch and look for support for Rabbi Yochanan, who says that it's only Durabanan, that really the money is Kona and Mashiach is only instituted as a safeguard by the rabbis. Dvar Torah Mos Konos. So Nachman says explicitly, according to the Torah, money is transfer of money is what makes the acquisition. Ubedaka Levi b'masnise ve'ashkach. Levi he included this view in his Mishnah, in his collection of Mishnah, or he was looking for it. The Ashkach, and he found this. Nisana l'siton mal. If you gave, he found another brisa that says if you give a siton is a wholesaler. So if you give money to a wholesaler, then you're liable right away. So what's the thing with the wholesaler is you're not like picking up the stuff and taking it home. He's got it in a warehouse somewhere, right? So it's you're the only action to take place is the handing over of the money. And Rabbi Yochanan, and this Bryce also supports that by saying that Meila takes place right away as soon as you hand over the money, even though you haven't done it. Okay, so that's a good proof for Rabbi Yochanan. What does Reish Lakish say to this? He, as we saw yesterday, where Reish Lakish is saying, according to the view of the rabbis, according to Rabbi Shimon that we saw yesterday, even Reish Lakish agrees that Rav Shimon holds that the money is content. But what Reish Lakish is saying, according to rabbis who argue with Rabbi Shimon, the point of dispute is that the rabbis hold that you need Mashiach.
What does Reb Shimon hold? How does he hold? What's the opinion of Reb Shimon then?
We saw yesterday that Rabbi Shimon says explicitly that it's the payment of money that is the biblical acquisition. Okay, so we're revisiting what we said earlier in the Mishnah, actually. Avalamar Misha Para, but they said if you don't keep your word, then you get punished. Itmar, Vayamar, Odue Modinanle. You tell somebody that, listen, if you back out of your verbal deal, you're going to be punished by God. Rava Amar Milat Laitinanle. We don't just inform him that he's going to be cursed by God. We actually curse him. We say, you went back on your word, then you're cursed like the people of Sodom or whatever. What are they arguing about? Abayam are doing Modin way. Why does Abai say we just let him know that he's going to be subject to God's curse? Tichsiv. The Nasi v'amchalo ta'ar. It says don't curse a Nasi, a prince. So it applies to anybody. He says don't curse him yourself, but inform him that you're not doing the right thing. You're going to be punished by God. Rava Amar Melat Leitinale. Why does Rava say you actually curse him? Tichsiv be'amcha be'osei masei amcha. It's a prince among your people. It's only when he's acting like one of your people, he's acting properly, that's when he's protected from being cursed. But if he's not doing the right thing, then he is subject to being cursed. And where do I know this from? The Rabbi Chia Bar Yosef Yovel a milcha. Rabbi Chia Bar Yosef, someone gave him money for some salt. Right? They bought the salt, but they didn't take the salt with them. Sof iyakar milcha. Then the price of salt goes up. And so Rav Chia wants to back out, and he wants to back out of the transaction because now he can get a higher price somewhere else. Also, the Kamei Rabbi Yochanan. They come to Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei Zil Havlu. You have to give it to him, right? You can't go back on it. Below Kabilu Alecha Mishapara. And if you don't do it, then accept on yourself this curse of Mishapara that God will curse you. Now, if Abaye is right that you just let him know that there's going to be a curse, Rav Chia Bar Yosef Bar Oduehu, like Rav Chia Bar Yosef he was a substantial person. He was a Torah scholar. He knows this. He knows that you're not supposed to back out. So, what's the point of letting somebody know something who knows already? The Gemara says the LMI Mila Laitinale. So what? So that means you're going to actually curse him. But Rabbi Chia Bar Yosef Asi Lekabule Ale Latusa Derabanan. Are we saying that Rabbi Chia is in a position where he should be cursed, right? So it's like if he's too important that if he's too much of a Talmid Chacham that he knows about the curse, then he's too important for you to curse him. El Rabbi Chia Bar Yosef a Ravon Hu Diavile. No, the circumstances are different. The payment was a down payment. The case was that the buyer didn't pay him the whole thing. He paid him a deposit, so he didn't hand over all the money. Who's ever connected who it? Now, he thought that a down payment only if you give a 10% down payment, then you're buying 10% at that time, and then later when you come up the rest of the money, you're buying the rest. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, "No, connected kula hukana. Once you handed over the deposit." If you accepted the deposit, that's the entire sale, right? The entire sale has taken effect, and the guy still owes you 90%, but the sale has taken place.
So then it doesn't matter if there's an aliyah b'machia, right? He's obligated to pay that price. That was the price they set beforehand.
Yes, right. So in other words, we're threading this needle by saying that, Rav Chia was a Talmid Chacham, but he made an educated person's mistake. Okay, it wasn't that he just didn't know the rules or didn't know anything. He made a mistake about the details of this deposit case. Okay, so he needed to be informed that it's a problem, right? So that's why. So this case does actually support the idea that that you should that we let's see. The Rabbi Yochanan is actually cursing him directly, but he is someone who should have known better. Itmar, we said before, a Rava. Rava Omer Keneged Okana, Rabbi Yochanan Omer Keneged Kula Okana. The dispute is whether the deposit acquires only the small percentage of the deal or the whole thing. Meisvei, so they ask a question on Rav, who says it's only it's prorated. Hanosin le'erovin lechavero. Person gives a deposit. If I change my mind, you get to keep the deposit. It's non-refundable. The seller says, if I go back on it, I'll give you back double your deposit. Right? Then these conditions are enforceable. Rabbi Yossi, that's what Rabbi Yossi says. Rabbi Yossi L'Tama, and Rabbi Yossi is consistent. The Amar Asmachta Kanya, who says that an Asmachta is taken seriously. And asmachta is like an exaggeration, right? So like it seems like you could take this idea that I'll give you back double your deposit as just just idle talk, right? Nobody really takes you seriously. Rabbi Yossi is saying that we do take you seriously when you say that. Rabbi Huda, remember Rabbi Huda says, no, you only you only acquire a prorated portion of what you're buying. Amar Shimon Gamliel, but Medvarim Amurim Bizman Shamarlo a Ravoni Yikon. That's only when there's an explicit statement saying that my deposit will will serve as a purchase. But if you sell a house or a field for $1,000, but you only pay 500 for now, without specifying anything, then you acquire the whole thing. And you, even if you don't pay up the rest until years later, you still own it. So like, yeah. My love, who adin l'metaltalin. So now, is that only the case with a house or a field, or is it also the case with movable objects? That if you don't make any specification, then you acquire the whole thing with the down payment. Is that not the case? Mar says, well, not necessarily. The rules are different for movable objects. Without a condition, you're only acquiring the percentage that you're paying for. Why is there a difference? Karka le mamash, with land, how do you acquire something? You can acquire something with land just by paying. So then by making that partial payment, you're calling everything. But when it comes to movable objects, right, you can only you can't you still need the Mashiach, right? The only thing that the verbal agreement or the deposit accomplishes is that you are subjecting yourself to the curse of going back on your word, right? But it's not the same as actually making the kinyan. Look on a little Kool-Aid, then it doesn't acquire the whole thing.
Well, weren't we saying that if he accepts, in the case of Yochanan, if he accepts the 10%, it's as if he acquired it?
Say again, sorry?
Weren't we saying above in the case of, I think it's Rav Yochanan, that if
Yeah.
he accepted the 10%, 20%, that it's as if he acquired it and he he would be subject to it could be subject to a curse, or maybe, I don't know, maybe, yeah.
No, that
So
wasn't the case of the deposit.
what? What's that?
That wasn't, I turned out to be not the case of, oh yeah, so that was, is it? Yeah, so what's the question? So
how do we say here that he doesn't, that he's
so maybe, yeah, it looks like
that's not
taking
Kona
one
here.
side of the argument. Here we have a focus with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Here we have a machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, right? So maybe what you're saying is that Rabbi Yochanan takes one side of that. Maybe that's correct. That does seem correct. The case we had earlier takes one side of this, that the deposit does acquire the entire transaction. Okay. All right. Maybe this is actually a Tanaitic argument. We have a bride. So Hamalvas Chaver al Mashka, you lend money against collateral. V'nichnas Shemitah, and then Shemitah comes, 7th year. Alpha B'Shein Shovel or plug, even though the security, the collateral is worth only half of the loan. There's no cancellation of the loan, because if it's a secured loan, then it doesn't get canceled. Rabbi Yehuda says, so if the collateral is the same value as the loan Eina Mishame. Then it's a secured loan and Shemitah doesn't apply. Being lav, but if it's only a partial value of the loan, then Mishame, then the loan does get canceled by Shemitah. My Eina Mishame to come Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. What does Rabbi Shimon Gamliel mean when he says there's no Shemitah applying here? Ilema Kenegdo. If you think that only half the loan is exempt from Shemitah because that's what the collateral is worth, that would imply that Rabbi Yehuda holds that half also gets subject to Shemitah. So what's the point of the security? Right? The collateral is supposed to guarantee that you're going to pay back the loan. So that half of the loan is definitely secured. So why would there be an argument? No, so it must be my Eina Mishame to cover Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. When Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says Shemitah does not take effect, Eina Mishame b'kulo, it means the loan isn't canceled at all. My Mishame to cover Rabbi Yehuda, and when Rabbi Yehuda says that that Shemitah does cancel it, he means only the part that is not secured, the half that's not secured by the half value collateral. Again, this is what their argument is. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel savar keneged kulo ukona. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel holds that the collateral secures the entire loan. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi savar keneged ukona. It only secures as much as it's worth. So Gemara says, well, that's not necessarily the case. You can't say it's the same argument. Mine and Mishami to come from Shimon Gamliel. We could understand what Gamliel says. Shemitah doesn't cancel his loan. He's only talking about the half of the loan doesn't get canceled. The half that's not covered by the collateral. So what Rabbi Yehuda holds is that half also gets canceled by Shemitah. So what's the point of the collateral? It's not really securing the loan. It's a reminder, right? So according to this understanding, having collateral isn't really it's not really like substituting for the loan. It's really just a reminder that it's symbolic. It's actually just symbolic, according to
even in the place of collateral. So then, even in the place of collateral, the loan is canceled. It's Shemitah.
Well, that's the machlokes, right? That if there's collateral, if there's collateral on the whole thing, if the value of the collateral is the equal to the value of the loan, then everybody would agree that Shemitah doesn't apply, right? In the case where it only covers half the value of the loan, so according to one, the whole loan is still covered by is still covered by the collateral, and Shemitah doesn't take effect, even though it's only half the value, but it's really just symbolic anyway. So it still qualifies as a secured loan for purposes of Shemitah, whereas the other holds no, that if it doesn't cover the whole thing, then it's not covered by it. It doesn't cancel Shemitah.
I mean, I usually see people using tiny amounts of security to keep the loan in effect.
Yeah, well, right down that to the back.
So then, then everyone would be the one's advantage then to establish collateral with the loan, and effectively you wouldn't even need a prusbom. That all loans would be in effect even during Shemitah.
Yeah, well, we do all kinds of things, like just this idea of symbolically giving it to Beis Din. Also a way of out of all, you can do that with all loans, right? So there are ways to get out of it. But you're right, that would be another way. But this is subject to dispute, so it would work for both opinions. Okay, we'll stop here for today, and David will pick it up tomorrow. I wish you all a Chag Sameach. I will pick up again the week after Pesach.
Yes,
Chag Sameach. Thank you.
Chag Sameach.